Everyone, welcome to another Music Talk Tuesday, and today I thought it'd be interesting to dive into some of uh, my personal, I guess you could say, uh, favorite songs as far as spring is concerned. I was only able to really find a couple of them that sort of stuck with me and were really trying to bring out that uh, spring air, as some people like to say. So without further ado, let me address these particular songs. Starting with Spring Fever by none other than Elvis Presley. This is one of his more least well-known works. I think that might partially have to do with the fact into which the way the song at least was recorded. But this one is still, regardless of it being not as popular, is still fun to listen to, and it really does bring up that upbeat nature that we come to expect from springtime. And it sort of presents itself in being very energetic and more fast-paced. And it sort of discusses sort of the pleasantness that's involved with spring, like talking about the flowers and butterflies and all of the nature that's part of really that season. And you can sort of tell by the way in which it's orchestrated that it really does have that deeply ingrained 50s vibe that we come to expect with a lot of Elvis's songs, in that they have this sort of background tune to them where people are sort of, singing little parts here and there. But even though it's rather simplistic, it still gives off that impression that you come to at least enjoy around this time of year. And it ultimately, I think, works to the song's advantage, so I think it is worth a recommendation if you're interested in hearing some of the material that Elvis at least is not maybe as well known for. Next song being Spring in Manhattan by Tony Bennett. This one, unlike the previous song, is a little bit more relaxed and mellow. And yet it has this sort of beauty and serenity to it. And it sort of talks about spring sort of coming into the picture in Manhattan, and sort of how it kind of does that. And in doing so, it sort of brings in a song, and it talks about sort of how that song kind of ends up staying with you, even in the winter time, so to speak. And you really do get the sense of Tony Bennett's voice and how sort of enchanting it is to listen to. And I think what really works to this song's advantage is the fact that it does try to create this sort of, I guess, wholesomeness that I think oftentimes people attribute to spring, and how it has this kind of coziness, and it ultimately works to the song's advantage, and we get something that's very lovely and pleasant. Third song that I wanted to briefly mention is none other than Spring by Vivaldi, excuse me. And the violins are really what enhance this particular piece. You really do get the sense of energy that flows through the piece, through those instruments. It's also very interesting because it combines sort of this relaxed and calm nature that we come to associate with when we think of spring, and also the more energetic and upbeat nature of spring as well. So it's sort of like combining the tones of the two previous songs together and kind of creating its own unique perspective into the time of year. And it really does make you feel like you're surrounded by nature. It's almost like you're walking through sort of uh, an through the forest or through some meadow where there's flowers. You really get that sense of, I guess, real sort of artistry. And I think that oftentimes translates really well with spring, because oftentimes, even with a lot of classical art, you'll see how spring is kind of really heavily referenced, and it's nice to sort of see that kind of artistic kind of passion sort of inserted here in the form of music, and you can really sense that really creative and uh, artistic energy coming through this particular piece. Um, and although there might be some who prefer Vivaldi's other seasons as far as their composition is concerned, this one still, I think, holds up in really representing this sort of essence of spring, and is one that I think a lot of people remember. So it's, I think, definitely worthy of recommendation. And last but certainly not least, Spring is Here by Frank Sinatra. Now, this one is actually rather interesting because although it is calm and relaxing, like the Tony Bennett song, it also has this sad and yet kind of romantic approach as well. Because ironically, within the lyrics, he's sort of talking about how spring um, is sort of here, but he doesn't really understand why he's not really, I guess, enjoying it as much as he would like to. And he sort of comes to the conclusion that it's because he's not in love, or nobody really loves him. And it sort of has this very um, sad connotation to it that we don't oftentimes think of when we think of spring. And you really do get a hint of the loneliness that the narrator sort of feels. And although there is all of this beauty that comes with spring, if there's nothing else that's sort of, I guess, enhancing the experience of it, it makes it difficult to enjoy. And I think that goes with every sort of season, and that, we have all of these highs and lows within our lives. And sometimes, um, even though we have these very nice bits and pieces of scenery, when we have nothing really going on within our lives, it's sort of hard to appreciate it and take it in, especially when you don't really have anyone to really share, uh, sort of the time with. So I think it's sort of reflecting onto this, and it does so in a fairly effective way. And at the same time, sort of referencing things that we often kind of at least associate with when it comes to spring. But I think that's really ultimately all I can say about all of these songs. I will be sure to put all of the songs within the description so that you can listen to them and enjoy them for yourself. But I think that's really ultimately all I can say, though. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a pleasant day, week, month, and year, and I hope to see you all in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.